What are the long-term economic consequences of war in Ukraine? It's worth just kind of bearing that in mind, because we're at one of these pivotal moments where other things are happening as a result of what's happening in Ukraine. Now, as you know, okay, so you've got Europe, you've got the NATO members, most of the NATO members there, and over there's this other grouping that most people won't necessarily have heard of, certainly in Europe, which is the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation. Now, the members of this are to be found over here, as you would expect. So China is really the leader of it, or at least set it up. You've got Russia as well, which is a part of it. You've got Mongolia and Afghanistan. They're observer members as well. Belarus recently joined. But perhaps most interestingly, India is a part of this as well. And if you look at the kind of global map, you see that whereas you've got kind of NATO over here, the European Union there, this is an alternative bloc, isn't it? It's an alternative bloc with some economic power, some real economic clout that you'll see in just a moment. And the backdrop, obviously, they're meeting in Tianjin, there it is. But the backdrop for this is that you're seeing a big divergence in terms of economic relationship between the West and those other nations. And you get a sense of this when you look at exports of goods from the G7, that's the dark blue line there, and China, to Russia. They were more or less rising in lockstep with each other before the invasion of Ukraine, and then look at what happened next. So the red line, China, that continues to go even higher. The dark blue line there, the G7, basically goes down to zero. Look at it, it's really clear in terms of the economic destiny of these two nations. And it's even clearer actually when you drill down into just particular sectors. This is transportation equipment, so stuff like planes, trains, automobiles from China. That was basically zero before the invasion of Ukraine, and then look, afterwards, it goes through the roof. Totally unprecedented levels. So that's China sending goods to Russia. How about Russia sending goods out? Well, a lot of that is now going to India. So India, before the invasion of Ukraine, didn't receive much in the way of oil. This is showing you where oil coming to India, so crude oil, came from. It came mostly from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, from the US, and from others as well. Russia's the red bit there, not much at all before the invasion of Ukraine. Then after the invasion, look at this. Now, Russia is one of the biggest contributors of oil to India, and obviously that gets refined in Indian refineries and then sent out around the world, and that is something that Donald Trump has said he's not happy about at all, and he's threatening to impose secondary tariffs on India. What does that mean in practice? Well, this is showing you tariff levels for different nations. So the tariffs that the US is imposing on various different nations, you've got Malaysia, you've got Cambodia, Vietnam there. There's India, that's 25%. China is even higher at the moment, and then Myanmar and Laos. But if you impose secondary tariffs on India, look at this bar. That goes up to basically 50%, making India pretty much the most tariff nation by the US. And that is something that's worth bearing in mind when you look at this chart as well. Okay, so this is showing you the share of global economy, global economic output, so GDP, accounted for by advanced economies. And that share has gone gradually lower over time, not because we're getting worse off. The amount of income generated is still going up. It's just the other part of the global economy is getting richer. And that, if you look at the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation, so that map I showed you a moment ago, here are the members of that. Tot it all up, and they, by 2030 or so, are likely to account for basically 50% of global GDP when you look at purchasing power parity, which is a pretty important comparison. It really just shows you the changing face of global economics. These nations, that bloc, is now accounting for a massive amount of economic heft. And at the same time, one of the other transitions that we're seeing right now is, well, this is quite momentous here. If you think about these two nations, India, there's Modi, there's China, President Xi, these two nations have been at economic loggerheads for decades. And so there's this prospect of, with higher tariffs on India, is India being pushed towards more of a rapprochement, an economic relationship with China that no one would have necessarily foreseen before war in Ukraine broke out?